Okay, we have heard the presentations, and I'm sure there are some issues that people would like to engage with. There are questions and statements people would like to make. So we move into our next phase, which we're not going to go on too long because I don't want us to be thrown out of here. For the next 20 minutes, we will have a discussion. People are invited to engage the panelists and to raise issues with them. And after that session, we will then, I think we have more food than people, so I want people to work on their appetites, and we will then go out after the discussion. There's an issue about the mic. I think we will have a revolving mic. People who are asking questions in the audience, talk to the mic, because that's the way in which we ensure that everything is recorded.
I just want to thank all 5 gentlemen for what I consider to be an exceptionally brilliant panel. So thank you all very much. I'm speaking for myself. Dr. Douglas, you began by locating your presentation in the Vision 2030, and Mr. Lumsden ended with Vision 2030. So Clem, I would say that the order of the panel, I think, worked quite well. The alphabetical ordering. Yes? Well, Dr. Douglas, you spoke about the focus of human resource practitioners, and you mentioned a few things. And I sat here and I thought of other things, which I think were brought out later on by the other panelists, particularly Mr. Lumsden's presentation on Vision 2030 and where we are. But I think we need to accept, which I think we all do, that productivity is really a multidimensional issue, and the solution to increasing productivity has to be found in every possible place. The education sector, in the way in which we live, our culture, etc., etc. So I thought that transportation issues, family support issues, especially for women, which businesses perhaps can get into the business of providing child care support facilities, social protection systems, and even also the treatment for emotional and very stressful situations. I maintain that we live in a very stressful environment in Jamaica, and I feel that these things also impact productivity. And so human resource practitioners also will need to pay attention to these things. Issues of personal safety, etc. All of these things impact on productivity. But I mean, I didn't disagree with anything that you had said, but I just felt that there are these other things which I think were brought out very clearly by Mr. Lumsden. In terms of Dr. Hutton's presentation, the issue of work ethic, which you raised, and you made a reference to the US. I thought that the US, I mean, has a sort of clear reward and penalty system, which I don't know that we have in our countries in the Caribbean. And so persons who leave from here are very much motivated by the reward aspect of performing well at work. And I don't know that we have that kind of system that is, I would say, rolled out across the board in businesses in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, and I would extend it even to the Caribbean. For Dr. Lawrence, well, your presentation sort of made me a little bit depressed, especially because you talked of the alarming business distress in Jamaica. I happen to be on the email lists of a number of, little stores in and around Kingston, and the number of them that have closed between last year and this year has been alarming to me. you know. And I was reminded of a Ministry of Labour presentation which was made at the Planning Institute in December of last year. Mr. Lumsden would remember. You might have been there, Dr. Lawrence. I think you might have been there, Dr. Douglas. And what it showed very clearly, this was an study of employers, and what it showed for me was a sharp decline in the importance of the manufacturing sector. And I thought that, boy, we can't grow a country simply on services or on a service sector. When you saw the kinds of jobs that were in demand, they were mostly education-related jobs. So the sugar industry that has declined, and the bauxite sector that has declined, these things have almost wiped out your manufacturing sector. And I've also found that when these sectors have declined, a migration of your skill takes place. A lot of the engineers who worked in the bauxite sector have gone to places like Australia, Madagascar, Canada, etc. They've just gone, and they've gone with that talent. And then, of course, Jide. The labor market surveys, that conversation between labor market needs and educators, that alignment issue came up in your presentation, which Mr. Lumsden made. And I don't know, is the Ministry of Labor here? I don't know if the Ministry of Labor is represented here.
I can't represent it.
You are from this. Well, I was thinking of the labor market information systems persons, not just the productivity, or I should say not only the productivity center. But one wonders why not very many labor market studies aren't done as a matter of course, looking at the extent to which we can align what the labor market needs with what we are producing. And Jide made a very important point about, well, he said in his time, everybody was doing management studies and so on. Now everybody is doing law. All your quote-unquote bright people are doing medicine and law. I don't know where we're going to be in the next 10 or 20 years if everybody who is bright is doing medicine and law, and who is telling them of the other options that these economies will require. There are smaller territories in the Eastern Caribbean, etc., who are crying out for specialist services in all kinds of areas, not just law and medicine. And everybody is doing law and medicine. And well, Mr. Lumsden, I think I have spoken a lot about, you know, how your presentation just pretty much ran across the other presentations. But thank you all again for what I consider to be really exceptional presentations.
Good evening. The note that I made was when Dr. Hutton was speaking, he mentioned USA, going to the USA and working 3 jobs. Because I had that real example here, maybe in the mid-90s, having an employee who had left, came back for holidays, and he said, boy, Michelle, I didn't realize it was so rough. I working 3 jobs, you know. Now, in fairness to him, he was one of the harder workers here. But has anybody ever done a study that asked the question, why is it that when you work abroad, you will do all of these things, you walk in the snow, etc. And here, as it rains, you will say, well, I can't come to work today because it's raining. And then when you get here, you're doing all the, you know, the half an hour shutdown for lunch and all of that sort of thing.
Well, thanks again. Unfortunately, as you know, I missed quite a bit of the presentation. But I just wanted to add, taking on from what Michelle and Heather have just said, is that perhaps the kinds of work that we produce for people in this country, they're not the things that inspire anybody. Many of us are going to work really just to pay our bills. But the conversations that I am seeing and the things that I'm reading now are pushing things like a creative economy, not the service economy. But maybe if we were to try to generate economy, generate industries that relied on the creative economy in Jamaica, we could actually get people to be motivated to do something.
This is just a quick explanation on why persons don't work 2 or 3 jobs, 3 or 4 jobs in Jamaica. I noticed that our businesses close at like 4:35. Persons would do extra jobs, I think, but even to pay the bills. But because we shut down in Jamaica at a certain time, then there's nothing to do after that except other businesses on the street.
Yeah, what I can say is that we know that security is a real problem in Jamaica. Nobody wants to go beyond a certain hour. I mean, I don't want personally to stay out there too late too. But in the United States, with a strong and stable dollar, the worth and value is significant. Many of those guys are sending their children to school, building a house. So the resources are enough, stable, strong, that can do many of the things that they cannot do here. So that is good reason to want to do 3 jobs over there, because you can do things here with that resources that you have created.
But although I quantified 3 jobs, I think I was also conveying the output, the fact that they were willing to push. I'm not necessarily saying that people here should also want to work 3 jobs, but they should want to give 7 hours of work or
So long as we are able to motivate persons, that is central. Persons here will work hard too, so long as they are motivated by, I think we are told that you cannot be motivated by money. Is that still old? Well, but motivation is a critical factor. If you feel that when you work, there's no value to do the things that you want to do, you're going to do it.
And also another question is the availability of the jobs. I think in the United States, you're talking about an environment where jobs are more available, and hence people tend to do them. You can't do the jobs if they're not available, right?
I have engaged in the presentation and learned quite a lot. I have a lot to say, but I'm just going to make a few comments. And I'm going to start with Mr. Lumsden first, because this is something in this slide, mark, low level of certification of the labor force. That's hard to believe. When there's so many more institutions around, you know, it's very difficult to believe, because I'm always quoting to my students that all they want is a piece of paper and run. Yeah? And then to see you have low level of certification, it seems quite difficult. Dr. Hutton, I heard you regarding the experience at Alcoa.
Yes, sir.
I had another experience in an opposite way, in the sense that it ended in the same way, in the sense that you talk about people who have lunch. I'm talking about those who have nothing to eat. Come on to work, yeah, and from about 11 o'clock, they start drinking water. Every minute they go onto the pipe, yeah? So the productivity after that time is 0. Granted, half of those persons turn up, did not have breakfast in the morning, right? And another half come and have to smoke a split before them doing the work. So by 10 o'clock, the body, you know, might go smoke again, yeah? What I had to do on construction sites was to build in lunch, food for the men. If you don't do that, you don't get anything after, especially if you are doing your have projects, have to meet a certain deadline, right? But they don't have any lunch, you don't get anything out of them, right? So it don't make sense to even have them around if you don't feed them. fair amount of things here, but I'm going to leave that for now. Management, poor management, it's a big problem. Our managers tend not to know the workers. You have to know your people, right? Companies in Jamaica employ talent and just leave them. Yeah. In the US, don't care which one school they go. They take you on the first 3 or so months. They'll bring you into that organization, let you know what we're about, how we go about it, what we expect of you. If that is not the case, yeah, we're going to have problems. Because somebody graduated from university, that's the first job, right? You know, they don't understand what is expected. There was a case where somebody needed an industrial engineer, at least when they did this need assessment, they said you need an industrial engineer. They employ one, and they didn't know what to do with the person. You know, these are the things that help create the problems that we are in. Okay? But I just leave it like that for now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Commendations, gentlemen, for some very good presentations. I just wanted to mention, ties into what Mr. Moore just said. Mr. Douglas, he spoke of measuring HR productivity and helping workers to understand productivity. I think that's a very big issue because a lot of times in organizations, at the management level, there are strategic goals and objectives that are set, and it is bought in, and the management team understands and so on. But the workers who actually operationalize and cause these plans and objectives and everything to come into effect, do they really understand what is required of them? As Mr. Moore just asked, you have orientation and so on. But do they understand the vision of the company, where the company is going? The man who cleans the business place, the auxiliary workers, do they understand how important their job really is to achieving the goals and the objectives of the company? So I think it's a very critical issue. Somewhat it speaks to culture and how, as management, as Mr. Moore mentioned, you change that kind of mindset and foster a new kind of thinking where you care about every person in the organization and how they understand where the company itself is going. So I think that's a very critical point. I don't know at the national level what kind of initiatives can be considered for somehow increasing that or trying to help management to understand in a much better way the importance of really communicating down to the grassroots level so that everybody in your organization has a good understanding of what it means for them at their desk, cleaning the yard, doing whatever, and how that impacts on the organization and its ability to perform and be productive. So, big issue, we need to think about it more.
If I could make a comment on that point, I find that there's a difference between organizations that have like a pay-for-performance system, that the workers are more, I was saying that, for organizations that have a pay-for-performance system, I believe that the level of understanding across all groups is greater. For example, you find that a company with a pay-for-performance system, they have to be careful in terms of how they come up with the performance pay metrics. And as a result of that, there's a lot of conversation between workers and staff to arrive at that. I've been to factories, for example, that have pay-for-performance, and every time you have, say, lunch break, you see people stopping because there's a board that does the calculation automatically for the day, right? So workers would stop by the board, look at the board to see what the performance level looks like before going to lunch. And when they come back from lunch, you can see the level moving because they have a target. They know how the performance is going to affect their take-home pay. So they have a target and they'll deliver on the target, right? And I think organizations that do not have that kind of system can definitely learn from organizations that have that system.
Just a follow-up point to that is, I think systems work where you have accountability, systems work where you have ownership, and those two have to work hand in hand. Persons have to be accountable for what their contribution is. They have to be compensated for their contribution, and then they have to have ownership of it. So that is what, when you have systems, there's no point in, management repeating a mantra every day and having people memorize the mantra if persons don't see how it affects their bottom line. And I think that realignment is going to be a critical component. A lot of us in Jamaica are waiting on government policies, and government policies are extremely important. So let me not trying to minimize that point. However, enabling environments from a microstructure perspective are what is going to allow the productivity growth that we're looking for. Because you're not looking, I like the first diagram, we're not looking for 1 or 2%. You're looking for 5 and 6% to get you where you want to get. To the point of the number of jobs, it's the same person that leaves here and goes abroad maybe 1 month later and will join a line, will be at work on time, will read the manual, will become the star performer. And I think it's something that we have to look at in Jamaica is, culture is a big thing. We have to not allow standards to fall, and standards fall gradually, but when they fall, they're hard to pick back up. So we have to, put it this way, minimum standards must be enforced, and then productivity or incentives will drive the productivity. So minimum standards, for example, nutrition, being on time for work, those are minimum standards, those are non-negotiable. You signed a contract, you should be at work at 8:30, this is where you should be, non-negotiable. But if you want growth and innovation, that's where now you need that incentive structure that aligns personal incentives with the company's vision. And that takes a little bit of thought.
Jide, I'd just like to riff on what you just said, because Jamaicans don't even need to leave the country. They just need to change companies sometime. Let's consider that companies like Grace Kennedy and Digicel have high productivity cultures. And so taking us back to the topic, the HR organizational productivity nexus, what is it that our companies need to be doing? What is it that we as HR trainers or practitioners need to be doing so that the organizational productivity goes up? We're great as a country at promoting the core things about our culture. But certainly we bear a part of the responsibility for changing that culture.
I think everybody has been hitting the same kind of concepts, and that is so true. That organizational culture is extremely important in maintaining the level of productivity that we need to drive the organization and the country. And I'm glad that I think it was Dr. Lawrence taking things out of the local context and looking internationally. We sell locally, let's look at selling internationally. The same concepts of culture and how an organization performs are important for us to maintain our life. And as a company, our management is also important because we as managers, if we are not professional about how we assess, even when it comes to productivity schemes, if we are not consistent and professional, then we're going to be perpetuating things, values that are wrong. And so employees will not have that link between their productivity and the job that they do and the productivity of the organization. So we also have to be very professional in these things.
I just wanted to make a sort of general comment because you'll notice we have a lot of prescriptions for the problem, and a lot of that resides in the factor that Charles highlighted, that total factor productivity or multi-factor productivity, which is a residual after you have quantified the contributions from capital inputs, both ICT and non-ICT, and the quality or composition of your human capital. What's left is the residual, and in our case, that residual was more than half, right, Charles? Yes. Was more than half of the productivity change over the 13 years that were measured. That residual has also been described as a measure of our ignorance. It means that we really don't know in a quantifiable way what is responsible for our productivity performance at that macro level of national growth accounting or productivity decomposition. We need more information at the company level, at the organizational level. I think there's room for a lot of research that can be done to maybe quantify, using case studies or benchmarking studies, what the contribution to productivity at the organizational level of some of the prescriptions that have been discussed here. And this is an area which I imagine the department and the university can play a major role. The attribution to the national level won't be direct or measurable in those growth accounting studies, but it will help to inform policy at the national level and certainly management practices at the organizational level. So I would encourage this area for consideration for the university and HR practitioners in helping us to understand better that unknown area that shows up in the growth decomposition exercises as that residual total factor productivity.
This question here regarding Mr. Lumsden, you made mention of the high levels of informality in business activities. What steps have been taken to capture or quantify these high levels of informality in businesses and their effect on national productivity?
Well, there have been studies. I mean, the most recent one was 2004. And it estimated the informal economy was about 40% of the size of the formal economy. I don't remember that it estimated productivity in the informal economy, but can you hear me? It's generally, it's generally across the board in other countries as well estimated to be lower. I don't have the exact figure, but it is a factor in terms of reducing the overall productivity of the countries, in the sense that a lot of the labor resources are being applied in the informal economy. in terms of measures. There are steps to try and increase encourage formalization of informal enterprises. Some of that will translate into official statistics, but some of it also will relate to other studies that, for example, poverty studies that don't rely on the same data, that household surveys, for example. So you will see some of it, hopefully, being captured in other estimates, in other data, in addition to productivity data.
Okay, I think that we have come to the end of the, should I say formal? The formal aspect of the discussion. People have asked the questions they have had and they have made the points they had. We now move outside, but before that, and I suppose we can continue the discussion outside. And the notion of informalism is an interesting notion. And here I am bringing the formal session to an end because people tell me, you know, that you should be respectful of time. And then when people get out there, they talk for hours. They seem to forget about the time. But that's the nature of the dual culture that we have. We are bringing the formal thing to an end, but the party will continue outside. We want to thank the panelists once again. All the panelists. We also want to thank the audience. I don't know if you're going to clap yourself or how will you do it? We are very happy that some people came out because we had a lot of debates in the unit about how many people we were to cater for. And we have two types of people in the unit. We have the overly optimistic and we have the overly pessimistic. Right? And I think that we settled for something like 100 so that somebody wanted to have a session in which we are preparing for 200 people, and somebody, I think, wanted 25 to 50. So I'm very grateful for the people who came out, and we did have a very lively session. And we want finally to thank Olivine in particular. Although we are a unit, but she gets very turned on by these activities, and she did put a lot of herself into the activity. So thanks everybody. We had a good session, and remember, I think we catered for 100 people. So feel free.